interested during the protests, while we're doing this stream from 12 to 3 Pacific, I will match everything you donate up to a total of $500. So if you want to make your money really count, I'm going to help you out.
Thank you, sir. Yeah. Hey, James J. Haeck, you heard him. If you donate, they donate to the Bail Project or follow the link that he posted there. He will hook it up for you. Thanks for that. See, again, money where your mouth is. Yeah, it is true. We booked this way back, more than a month. This was about two and a half months ago. Actually, we booked this, and of course, we couldn't have known this was happening at the time, but the reason why I still wanted to go through with it, and I've still gone through with most of the streams, not all of them, but most of them, is I think it is still important to have a release, a refuge, an escape, that we have to be mindful and aware of what's happening in the world, but it really is okay to stop and take a deep breath and see a movie or listen to some music or talk to your friends. Like, it's fine. It's not that you just have to be completely inundated with the stress and anxiety of existence the entire time. It's okay to come up and take a breath and then keep swimming forward.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, there's no need to drown in despair. If you can find a moment of brightness, and if that's playing D&D, perfect. I mean, every week with my home group, I manage to, keep myself from going under a little bit just by hanging out with friends. So,
yeah, and more importantly, I think if you don't give yourself those releases, that's where the burnout kicks in. That's where the stress kicks in, and then you're like, oh, I just can't, and then you shut everything out, and that's what's detrimental. So that's why we're here today, hanging out, doing the thing. Now, also, if you have any questions for James in chat, put it with a capital question in front of it. We'll pull it out probably at the break, to tell you the truth. And when we after the break, we'll ask the questions that you put forward. But I would like to ask you, or it's not a question so much as a conversational prompt, I suppose. In many ways, you are living the dream, man. You're working on these projects. You have managed to be a part of this. And a lot of times people look at the things you've accomplished and they're really like, wow, I wish I could do that. So tell me, from the moment, like, what was the path to get here? You're a young guy. You're still your head writer for D&D Beyond and putting out a lot of content, and have worked on some of the most iconic projects of the last few years. So, how did you get here? How did this come about?
It's a long and winding road, and I'm going to preface this by quoting the man who inspired me to make my way here, Chris Perkins, in a talk he gave at PAX West, probably 2015, 2016. He said, the way that I got here does not exist anymore. Chris Perkins got here because he submitted to Dragon Magazine and eventually became the editor of Dragon Magazine, and then went up through Wizards and is now the story designer there. That path does not exist. Likewise, the weird and snaky back and forth path that I took to get here, which started with EN World's 5th edition Patreon zine, and went to Kobold Press, and went to Geek and Sundry, and met Matt Mercer in Critical Role, and then went to freelancing for Wizards, and then to D&D Beyond. That path is not the one you will follow. I promise you, your path will be very different from mine. But there's a bright side to the fact that the path is overgrown. And it means that as long as you have the willpower and the ability and like a lot of luck, we got to be honest, you can make your own way through that forest and find your way. If not necessarily like where I am right now, then you will find your way to a place that is good for you. And I would define that place that's good for you as a place where you can feel proud of the work you do, where you have a lot of friends who support the work you do, and third, and hopefully, where you can make enough money to support yourself doing the work you're proud to do. It's not everyone gets to the third point, but even if you're just doing it as a hobbyist, not as a professional, you can have those first two things where you're proud and you've got friends who support you. if I had to be working a day job that was not in D&D, I would, I'd probably be looking for stuff in video games or some other kind of publishing, but I would still be desperately, desperately in love with D&D and role-playing games. There's just no two ways about it.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. I think that's the number one question I get is, how'd you do it? And what's funny is almost all of us are like, the way I did it's not going to work for you,
Yeah.
But the way I did it is different from how you did it. Although there are definitely certain through lines that the speech that I always give, that I'll give the super abbreviated version, is it's a 10 years ago on the short end, 20 years ago on the high end, between 75 and 150 people controlled all of entertainment. That if you didn't get a rub from, that agent or that producer or that director, it's as you just weren't going to make it. Like you weren't going to be a writer or a filmmaker or an actor or whatever. That's not true anymore. That access has been flattened out. But now the challenge is being heard over the noise. Like what we do literally was not possible just a few years ago. And who knows what's coming next. But yeah, but I think that the through lines here are, you notice the people that have these stories is still prolonged effort over a long period of time. Even when it's small, because that's the thing about finding the joy in it. When you enjoy it, it's fine if it's small scale. And relationships, meeting people, like connecting but helping other people. And I always have to preface that, because I find a lot of times you'll run into people that are like, well, it's just who you know, and I don't know the right people. I'm like,
the classic Hollywood. Yeah.
No, it's not just that. I mean, again, it's a part of it. But if you show up and you provide a service that is of value, and quite frankly, you're not an asshole, you will meet the right people, and things will take care of themselves.
Yeah.
But it's funny you said that I showed Perkins, because I keep pointing right over there, because all my old second edition stuff's right over there. And I have a bunch of issues of Dragon magazine, and I have a Planescape article that Perkins wrote. And I tweeted a picture of it once, and I was like, "Hey, look at this." He's like, "I bought my first car off of the check I got for that adventure." And I'm like, "Wow, but I think you hit on something that is very important, and that is the finding the fulfillment in the path on the way up. Because I mean, I'm gonna tell y'all, I talk all the time about do the thing. Life is both too short and way, way, way too long to spend unfulfilled. And the time is going to pass whether you make the most of it or not. And you got that story that is bubbling in your mind, get it out, get it on paper. And I've been saying, the world is starting to restart now. But over these last few months, that's kind of a drum I was beating on. I'm like, this is the most time we've ever had. This is the most time you're ever gonna have. So if you can focus and squeeze it out right now, this is the time. And honestly, it might help you deal mentally with the insanity.
Yeah. And that's the thing with finding friends who will be there to support you. This is talking about the fulfillment and the, sort of who thing. Because okay, let me give an example from my experience. The first gig I ever had was working for a 5th edition Patreon zine with EN World, the RPG forum. And this was one of the very first third-party publications for 5th edition. It was like don't tell anyone, but it was before there was an official SRD open game license for 5th edition. We were kind of flying blind on the coattails of the old license. And I met this guy. His first ever RPG publication submission is this guy named James Intricasso.
I know him well.
He submitted to our magazine. Very first thing he'd ever submitted to RPGs. I was the editor. I approved the submission. I published it. I published many more of his things over the years. And not only did he become my very good friend because we were people whose like beliefs align, we're funny, we make each other laugh, we like hanging out, having coffee when we're at cons and stuff like that, but we're also professionals who navigate the same space. And because of that friendship, because we see the good in each other's work, because we see the good in each other, I was able to help give him a leg up when he was starting and when I was starting. And he made other connections way out somewhere else in the RPG world, like with the DM's Guild adepts, for example. And like when he was there, he was constantly advocating for me too. I swear it's because of him that so many of the opportunities have come my way. And like, it's an important and very subtle distinction for every person in a creative field to recognize, especially in entertainment industry, and RPGs are 100% an entertainment industry. It's that you can't use people, but you can be friends with people. Like there are a lot of people who just can't seem to get that distinction, right? Like, well, if I'm asking my friends for help, I'm using them, or like if I back and forth. No. Work on friendships, and they will bear fruit. But work on the friendships for their own sake, not because they will bear fruit.
Yeah, and try and help those other people. Always be looking for a way to signal boost somebody else's stuff. Like again, a story I've told, that the reason why you and I are here having this conversation today is when we were doing Ask Your Black Geek Friend, I knew of Satine because we were around Geek and Sundry. I think I'd met her face to face once by that point, but I was aware of who she, you can't really miss Satine. And she'd put out her supplement right around then, the Chult supplement that she put out. So I guess this is late 2017 this happened. And I went on Ask Your Black Geek Friend, and we were on an episode, and I just like plugged it. I was like, hey, our friend Satine Phoenix put this out, some DM skill, go get it. And I clipped that, and I sent her the clip. And I was like, hey, gave you signal boost, hope it helps, hope you're doing well. And she was like, oh my God, wow, that was so great of you. Thank you. And then about 2 weeks after that, she was like, hey, we're doing this charity thing in December for Charity D20. I was wondering if you'd like to come play, because when I first got into Geek and Sundry, they didn't know I played games because I came in as a talk guy. But I walked in the door with a plan. I knew that literally it was like a vampire. Like, you've invited me and it's too late now. Like my infestation will spread through this entire building. Like, you can't stop it now. And she's like, hey, will you come play? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. And I played a game of Vampire the Masquerade with Jason Carl. And you can still find the Chair D20 2017 link. And that was the first time I ever played on stream. That was the first night I met Jason. And I went all in, man. And because I knew, I was like, this is my shot. Yeah. So I did the costume, I did the voice, I did it all.
Hell yeah.
And it worked. And then, gigs beget gigs. But you also have to be conscious of how you're appearing in these spaces, because it is very small and people talk. I can't tell you how many times, because this is how it works now. That it's like, hey, we need a new writer for this project. Oh, what about Tom? Tom, yeah, had some bad experiences with Tom. Really? What about Tammy? Tammy's legit. Cool, let's get Tammy. Literally, that's it.
Yeah,
that's it.
I've had that conversation with different names so many times. For sure. It's like just like we were talking about. There's so many people doing independent things right now that it can appear as though the scene is very large. It is not. No matter what you may see, no matter how many people you see streaming on Twitch or publishing on DM's Guild or whatever, we are still minuscule compared to traditional publishing or television or films or anything like that. So can't get away with anything.
Yeah, everybody knows each other, and if they don't, it's 1 degree of separation. Like, if I don't know everybody, I'm literally a phone call from literally anyone in this whole industry. Yeah. So all of that is to say, though, if you're watching this and thinking of that you want to become a content creator, do it, man. Do it. Continue to tell your stories and hone your craft. Remember, all of Paizo was launched by a single adventure, Rise of the Rune Lords. You know, Rise of the Rune Lords just happens to be freaking fantastic. You know,
Yep.
so it's right now. I don't. Is there anything that is in the pipeline that you can talk about yet?
Oh my gosh, that's always such a tough question because there's always something in the pipeline, but there's rarely something to talk about. I will say this. So I did not work on Mythic Odysseys of Theros, the new D&D campaign setting coming out, but my fiance Hannah was an editor on that book, did an amazing job. The book is legitimately one of the most gorgeous things I've ever seen published by
Especially the god on the cover looks a lot like somebody.
So because of COVID-19, the print book is delayed into next month, but the book is available right now digitally on D&D Beyond. It still looks great. And there's going to be a lot of article content by me coming out to support the book in probably the next 2 or 3 weeks to come. And there's going to be some encounters that will blow your mind a little bit. So keep an eye on D&D Beyond.
Yeah, it's, you know, the thing that I like about you in your style of content that you create in particular is you think about the game and what the world really would entail and what the stakes really, really are.
Thanks, man. Yeah.
I believe you wrote extensively about mind flayers. That was you that did this, right?
Yes.
I would like you to know the entire what ended up being about
my favorite Wiggly Boys. Yes.
What almost 3/4 of season 1 of A Darkened Wish ended up being mind flayers, and it was because I was thinking about what I wanted to do with them, and I drew heavily on what you wrote about their psychology and tactics. So the emotional torment I inflicted on the cast and audience, I would like to thank you for, sir.
I shall take credit.
Rightly so. You know, I think from a storytelling standpoint, because, you know, I am a storytelling fiend, and I think about these things as much as at times I spend doing these things. And I think it is important that people realize, especially now in a time that is, you know, very polarized, you know, apparently there's some civic disagreements taking place. I don't know. In my Gilded Wizard Tower, very little reaches me, but I've been told it's a time of unrest. A statement I made recently, and I very much stand by it, is any correlation between race and morality is problematic, both in the world and in fantasy worlds. So I always challenge people to be like, it's like, well, that's an evil race. Is it? You know, like, of course, you know, far flung eldritch horrors like mind flayers, it's fine. But even so, I still put a couple of even mind flayers in there that were different, you know? And I think anytime you're calling upon something and you're like, well, these are the bad guys because they're orcs. It's like, no, they're not. You know, yeah, they're an intelligent race. They have a reason. They have a motivation. They're doing this for something.
It's just good drama too. I mean, like, we can talk about the racism all day, and we should, but like, it's just bad storytelling.
Yeah. When you're like, I'm doing this because I'm evil. You're like,
shut up.
Yeah. Are you though? Yeah. Right. Yeah. No, I agree. And the more you can make your characters in protagonists, definitely, but antagonists, 3-dimensional creatures with their own reason and their own alien rationale to things, or conflicting rationales to things. And let me be clear, I'm not saying they can't be hideously evil. A pit fiend can still be a pit fiend. You just have to realize that to the pit fiend, what it's doing makes total sense. The villains are always the hero of their story.
Yeah. You know? What is the way the world should be? I will make the way the world it should be. Like that's the easiest motivation you can get. And like it's such a Hollywood cliche. What's my motivation? But it's like, it's true. It's the basis of good storytelling. Not every story has to have conflict, though. Your creative writing 101 class will tell you that not every story has to have conflict, but every story must have a motivation, unless you're writing some, you know, absurdist, impressionist sort of art piece. But if you're playing D&D, you're not doing that.
I mean, hopefully not. I've seen some people try it. I've seen some attempts at like avant-garde noir D&D, and I'm like, I don't think that's gonna work like you think, and then it didn't.
I'm interested. I'd watch it.
Yeah. It's I'll send you some links during the break. I'll drop some names for you. Yeah, you know, it's it's funny. I just said that that's not a thing, but I almost would be interested if somebody could do it. And I'm gonna say this out loud, and I don't mind if somebody steals my idea, because if you beat me to it and execute on it before I can, well played. Are you familiar with the immersive transmedia experience, Sleep No More?
Yes, I love Sleep No More.
If somebody were to take almost like an immersive D&D themed, like almost LARPish Sleep No More, like imagine if you took something like Curse of Strahd. I mean, you obviously have to license the heck out of it, of course. Don't get sued, kid. Hasbro's a behemoth. But took something like Curse of Strahd and made like an immersive LARP experience of that. Like, that'd be wild.
That would be killer. I would love to see a D&D Sleep No More thing. You know, D&D Live almost got there with Waterdeep. You know, almost. If we pushed it more, oh man, yeah.
Hey, I was one of the performers during that. You might recall. Moja, servant of the people of Waterdeep. That was a great. You're right. It was. We pushed the envelope on that. I wished we'd done more of that stuff last year. This year, again, the Hasbro assassins will gun me down if I tell you any of the things I've heard. But they're trying some new stuff this year. You know, obviously within the framework of the pandemic, like had it been a live event, it still would have gone down differently. So I was happy to hear at least some of the things I've heard whispered on the wind. We'll say. Yeah, but it's an interesting. How long have you been playing games like this? How long have you been playing D&D?
Playing D&D. You know, I have never LARPed before, but my first RPG, like the first thing that like caught a fish hook in my lapel when it came to RPGs was there was a friend of mine who I was playing like a forum-based role play with back in 2008 or something. Okay. My very first RPG experience was forum roleplay based on like the Fire Emblem series for Nintendo way back in 2008. But from there, I learned about. You heard it here first, folks. James Haeck, nerd.
Like it's the word shocking, escandaloso.
I heard about LARP from one of the people who I was doing forum RP with, and it seemed really cool. It's like, whoa, I get to have a real sword, not a real sword, but a real sword, and it never came together because LARP is such an expenditure of time and effort and creation, and it was something that at that time in my life I did not have any of those resources, neither time nor effort nor money, to apply to it. But it was actually, I'm coming up on my 10-year anniversary of playing D&D this month. I think it was last year. I was looking around last June. I was thinking, man, I started playing D&D a while ago, didn't I? When will be my 10 year? I thought it was last year in 2019, but no, it's going to be. It was summer of 2010. I gathered a bunch of my friends together with two brothers who had some 3rd edition books already. They were kind of the instigators of it. We gathered in the basement of our local game shop, which is tragically closed now, has been for many years. But it's just all gone out of control from there, really. I played as a player for about 3 or 4 sessions, and then I took the DMing reins after my friend was like, I've just been improvising at the start of every session. I don't really know what I'm doing. Does anyone else want to go? And I was like, I shall do it. I have stories to tell. And I just haven't stopped.
I appreciate hearing that you're coming up on your 10-year anniversary, because that is a lot of time. But it's like most people you talk about, like me, next year will be 30 years for me.
Right.
You know, most of us are like, you know, it's back in my day, that wasn't even an internet. You know, we
Uh-huh.
had to ride your bicycle to go and pick up the new box set down at the hobby store. You know,
Yeah.
the fact that you are a product, I'd say that was probably right just before the Renaissance. Because
Mm,
right,
mhm.
because a little after fifth edition is when kind of because we're about 6-7 years into this era, I'd say, of
Oh, losing you.
oh, curses. We're about 6-7 years into the um this era, I think,
Mhm.
when streaming when it crossed over to becoming cool.
Yeah,
Um,
when did 5th edition start? Summer
about 2012.
2014, I think.
Was
Yeah.
it? I thought it was 12. It could have been 14. It was,
I think it
you
was
know,
14.
here's why I'm thrown off by it. I measure it in terms of the place where I was working and the people I was around. And that was
Uh,
from 2012 to 2014. So it's the same window
mhm.
of time. It might have been 14. It might
I
have been
think it was
14.
14.
Yeah. I mean, you would have far more insight into that than me. So I'm going to go ahead and say it was 2014. Um, yeah. Which, again, it's a fifth edition kind of sparked the change. And it's funny because I was a relatively late adapter of fifth
Mhm,
edition. I mean, I've been at
mhm.
it for years now, but you know, this we shall not speak of fourth edition, but I was one of the 3.5 refugees that went to
Mm,
Pathfinder.
mm,
So when they came like, oh, there's a new edition, I was like,
mm.
no, they got me with that last time, you know?
Mhm.
And I really wasn't interested. And a couple of people were like, no, it really is. It's no, it's good. And I was like, all right. And I played a home game. And then I was like, oh, okay, you know, this is the game I remember. And they actually made it better. I remember being particularly impressed by the advantage disadvantage system.
Yeah.
That was just I was like, that's
How did
intriguing.
no one think of this before?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's like,
yeah.
whoa.
Yeah, and I was like, "Oh, okay. Let me take another look at this," and then sploosh,
Mhm.
and here we are. Here we
Yeah,
are.
I
Yeah.
never played 4th edition either, but it wasn't because of any like, oh, this edition sucks sort of thing. It's because I was playing D&D basically right as 4th edition was in its heyday, but
Mhm.
none of my friends owned the 4th edition books, and none of us had enough money to spend on them. So we were just like,
Mhm.
yeah, we've got what we've got. I didn't even know how different D&D editions were at that time.
Mhm.
I was such a greenhorn that like the distinction was completely lost on me. I'm all I knew is that if we want to buy more source books, we can't buy the ones for the current edition because they just aren't compatible.
Mhm.
That's
Mhm.
all it meant to me. And looking back on fourth edition has been really enlightening to me as a designer, because I think there are some interesting things about that edition that are worth bringing forward that I think got kind of mixed up in the bad press and
Mhm.
the mess that the launch of the edition just was. A lot of baby was thrown out with the bathwater, but the trick is that you can't have a game that no one plays. Um,
Well, and again, I think the Renaissance has borne out that their ultimate decision making to go for a fifth edition was good. Because I
mhm.
remember when
Yeah.
people were like, "It's about to die." That
Hmm.
this, that fifth edition will fail. This D&D next thing will not be a thing. You know,
Hmm.
having an online subscription service for it is not going to work, and this is the end. And that was flatly wrong,
Hmm. Hmm.
flatly wrong. Yeah, no, I agree with you, and I see what they were getting at. In they made some bold choices. They made bold
Mm.
choices, and
Mm.
that's the thing with creativity. When you throw that Hail Mary, if they pull it down, you're going to be a hero.
Yeah.
If they don't, everyone's going to be like, "Why did you throw that pass? What is wrong
Yeah.
with you? You threw that
Uh,
interception. What is wrong with you?" You
you
know?
should have held the ball. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I'm glad they made the pass.
Yeah. No, it's worked out well for all of us. And speaking of working out well for all of us, we're gonna play a little fifth edition today.
Play some
Uh,
D&D, my friend.
so who is going to be joining us this fine day?
I am going to be playing a Galder Bristlehide. He's a hill dwarf barbarian. He is a battle rager, a tradition of barbarism known only to the dwarves and those who have studied with them, who fight with spiked suits of armor. But the thing about Galder is that he is a lover, not a fighter. The only problem is that he is trapped in a cursed suit of spiked armor that he cannot take off. So though he would truly love to be tender and give his friends hugs, he cannot do so without hurting them. So he channels his anger into into fighting monsters.
Galder, am I saying it right?
Galder, yes.
Galder. Is you find yourself on this fine day riding along in a horse-drawn cart on a mountain pass, going towards a small town that you know is about another hour or so ahead of you. You have a traveling companion that struck out to forage for a bit while you rein the horses down the cart. It's a cool day. The mountain air is crisp and clean, and the sunlight is shimmering off of your spiked armor. What does Galder look like?
Galder is he's a stout fellow. He's a dwarf. He stands just about 4.5 feet tall. The most noticeable thing about him is the spiked armor. You can't miss it. Each one of these spikes about 6 inches long, glistening. He has, even his shield is spiked. He wields a morning star, a spiked mace, and beneath his helmet, really all you can see of him are his eyes. These very tender, watery eyes, and this large, protrudent nose, and just the little bit of thick black mustache poking out from beneath his helmet. But other than that, no part of Galder can be seen underneath the spikes.
As you are making your way along, curses, sorry, I'm still dealing with my mic here. As you are making your way down this mountain pass, you hear, Bristlehide! Bristlehide!
Eh? What's going on?
A moment later, a large shadow appears over your cart, and you hear boom, and a person lands in the back of it that you are familiar with. It is your traveling companion, Miriel. Miriel stands about 6 foot tall, and she is wrapped in glistening platinum armor with white, feathery, angelic wings and a burning symbol that is always in the middle of her forehead, and eyes that glow when she is excited or angry. And right now, her eyes are glowing. And she pulls her wings back in, and she's like, "There's a town up ahead, Galdir. Is this the place that you were expecting to go?"
Absolutely. I was hoping to find a place to rest and shelter in the town. I can see that glint in your eye, though. What's going on, Muriel?
I don't like this place, Bristlehide. Something about it just gives me an ill omen.
You sense evil around here?
Yes, but I cannot locate it, or else. And she just sort of puts her hand on the longsword that hangs at her hip. She's like, just be vigilant, my friend.
Well, you know, Muriel, I'd follow you to the ends of the earth if it came to it. And I take this spiked gauntlet, and I make to pat her on the hand, but I go and sort of pat the edge of the cart instead to avoid spiking her. Keep those glowing eyes on the road and tell me if you see anything out of the ordinary. In the meantime, I'll just make sure we don't go off course.
She looks down at the hand, spikes covering all over it, and she says, "You know, eventually you have to tell me how you came about this sorry state."
Oh, it's a sad story indeed, but not for today.
I'm just going to take one more pass. You should The car should arrive there within minutes. I'll come back before you do.
Okay. Thank you, friend.
She stands back and her wings unfurl again and she shoots off and the whole cart kind of rocks for a second and the horse.
Oh, hey, careful there, boy.
And you see she goes arcing off into the distance. As you walk a little bit further or rein the horses further, give me a perception check.
Yeah, I want to know kind of like what the environment around me is right now, too. That's going to be a 12.
Think Pacific Northwest. Pine trees. You're sort of inset into a well-worn mountain path, but it is very much kind of, you maybe have another 18 inches on the side of the path. If someone were coming the other direction, it definitely would be a problem. But it is fairly comfortable to navigate along this hillside, especially for you as a dwarf. Anywhere you can touch a mountain's a good place.
Yeah.
And the air is again fresh and clean. You can see for some distance, and with a 12, I will say up ahead you can make out a settlement sort of nestled in the trees. There's smoke coming out of the chimneys. So far, at least from this vantage point, nothing seems to be out of sorts.
God, I'm just imagining the opening car ride from Skyrim right now. You're finally awake.
It's not that. Yes. Is you
no, boy.
That is true. You're like, look at me. Look at my face. Look at my face. I'm driving the cart now. Yeah. Is you rein the horses further, you find just around the bend, this time Muriel is standing in the middle of the road and she's just sort of like rubbing her face, looking forward.
I look at her for a moment and I look back just in constant amazement of how she gets around like this with those wings. I'm gonna bring the cart to a stop, and if she doesn't like react to my approach, I'm gonna hop out of the cart and trudge up to her, and boots kind of stomping in the mud.
There's just something. I can't put my hand on it. I flew over the town. Seems the people are going about their lives. But something, I tell you, Gilder, something.
I wish I had more than something, Muriel. Is it a feeling like you sense a presence, or is it just kind of a prickling on the back of your neck?
Prickling. I don't mean to sound like some worrying old ninny. It's just, it's fine. I'm sure it's fine. Or it won't be fine, and then we'll make it fine. And she pats the sword again. Yeah.
That's the way I like to hear it. Well, okay. If things seem dangerous to you, maybe we should take a look around the town before we go inside. Huh?
But she steps back and she sort of looks you up and down, wrapped in your prickly metal, and she looks down at herself and her gleaming plate and glowing skin. We're not exactly inconspicuous, Galder.
Suppose that's true. Well, no matter what happens, when we make it into this town, we're going to be the center of attention right quick. So I suppose, I came here because I was hoping to just find a place to stay that wasn't camping out under the stars while we're traveling. So let's find a bed for the night, and then we can we can pace through town and keep our eyes open for evil.
She leans down and she just says to you, I will say I did smell some delightful bread baking down there somewhere.
Then why are we still here talking about it?
Cow, yes. And she turns and looks at the horse. What's your horse's name?
My horse's name is Chevy.
Chevy stands there, you idly looking out, breathing in the air, a little tired because you're a lot of dwarf to tow, but, Chevy knows how to do her job. And Muriel looks, is like, well, Chevy doesn't seem too disturbed, so I guess it can't be too terrible, huh?
Well, I don't know. Nothing much disturbs her. She could be placid as a still lake if there's a thunderstorm rolling around her. I wouldn't take that much of an indication.
She reaches up and she kind of gives Chevy a scritch behind the ear. She's like, I envy that sometimes. I do. And she hops in the back of the cart. And this time she kind of throws like a bit of like a blanket over her so she doesn't just like, isn't like conspicuous white wings and everything. And she just sort of sits in the back kind of, and she's like, okay, I'm ready. Right. You do the talking though.
You've got it. I got a sweet voice like honey. I'll make sure that everyone is on our side when we go in. Okay, I head into town. What does this town look like? Is it a town that's sort of that's made of stone with fortifications and all that, or is it more of a town that's got like wooden buildings, maybe even no protections?
Wood frontier. There are some thin walls that are mostly from pine posts driven into the ground that are sharpened. You've been enough places, Galdir, that you know this would not repel a serious attack. So the fact that this is still standing means they probably have not been beset by too great of a foe. Most of the buildings are wood. A couple of them are stone. There's one building kind of in the center of town that dwarfs all the others, that is about 3 stories, which again would be, you'd walk right past it without noticing in Waterdeep, but here it is, monumental in this space. Things look comfortable and well made. Actually, give me another perception check now that you're a bit closer.
You got it. That's gonna be a 10.
Hey, that sounds like you're using the digital dice from D&D Beyond.
Yeah.
I've heard D&D Beyond is a digital tool set that will help take your game to the next level.
Guys, D&D Beyond.
I'm all like, all this written electricity brought to you in part by...
And I am using the new Mythic dice, the promotion for Mythic Odysseys of Theros. I can't do it with a straight face.
Like that. Hey. I don't mind because they donated 50% of the proceeds to this one. So I'm like, yeah, no, buy it. Go buy another pair. Yeah.
That is true.
As you look around, it looks like a standard town. You've been in places like this 100 times. A couple people are walking by with carts. She's right. You do catch the ambience of bread baking on the air. Right by the gates, which is really more of an opening. You're not even 100% sure they could bar it if necessary. There is what looks like a half-elf standing with a spear, kind of nodding slightly, and then he sort of snaps to when you come up, and he goes, who goes there?
I know. I'm a traveler named Galdir Bristlehide, and this is my companion Muriel. We're passing through town. I'm on my way back to my family in the Dwarf Holds after being out on some adventures, and I'm just we're just a couple of folks looking for shelter and maybe some of that fresh baked bread that you can smell in the air.
Well, welcome to Pine Haven. Just, and he kind of warily eyes your spiked armor, and he's like, you don't mean to make any trouble, do you?
Because it's a long story. I can't take it off. Makes sleeping a real pain in the neck. Actually, don't give me a good mattress or anything. Give me a bale of hay.
Give me persuasion with advantage.
Okay.
So you're being nice, and he's interested, but you do make a frightening figure against the landscape. What color is Galdir's spiked armor?
So his spiked armor is let me double check this. Yeah, his spiked armor is it's made of these steel bands, kind of bolted or sewn into like a light leather suit underneath, and it's got this steely color that has been dulled fairly dark by it's difficult to maintain, all the spikes. You have to really like polish around it. So he does his best to maintain it, but there's a lot of grit and grime that's darkened it to this really, really dull sort of almost lead-like gray color. Anyway, I rolled 2 11s on the dice. That's going to be for persuasion an 11.
You're like, I rolled 2 11s. That makes it an 8. Yeah. No. His eyes sort of narrow, and he's like, right, Okay, well, you can make your way to the inn over there on the east side of town, but you careful, the watch is everywhere. And you see that he goes over to a small booth that is sort of sitting next to him, and he pulls on a small door, and you notice a uh, very fat blue pigeon. It's been dyed blue, unnaturally blue, kind of waddles out, and he sort of like tickles it, and he's like, come on, Lily. And it flies away.
Would you describe that creature for me one more time? Cut out for me just a little bit.
It is like a pigeon that someone has either painted or dyed. Like it is not, it is no bird. Like it clearly, like you can see it close enough that it is like an unnaturally like dipped pigeon that just takes flight.
I'm gonna look at that guy again and say, Lily, it's a beautiful name for a bird. Can't say I've ever seen anything quite so pigmented in that way before. Where do you find a beast like that?
He swells with visible pride here. He's like, well, I'm the keeper of the pigeons, and Lily is a good friend of mine, and she's a messenger pigeon, she is, and I send her out when I have to send messages to the other guard posts.
Ah, magnificent bird. There are other guards with pigeons like this in this town? That's incredible.
Well, they're not so to have pigeons like Lily, of course. You know?
No, of course I don't.
She's one of a kind, but that's it's an easy way to get word out. We used to do smoke signals, but then people would be barbecuing or grilling outside, and his accent does change, by the way, as he starts relaxing. He gets far more colloquial with you. Yeah. And he's like, yeah, so it's my own dad set upon this particular system, and we raise the pigeons from when they're wee chicks.
Oh, that's darned cute. I'm gonna kind of look out, follow Lily's path. Can I see where other of these pigeon posts might be, or like guard towers, or?
You can give me another perception check with advantage.
Absolutely, I'm gonna roll them digital dice.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's one of them going to be a 21. Hey. Yeah, I'm not going to get better than 21.
You notice the pigeon alights, and you got a pretty good view of this town when you were coming in, and Muriel got an even better one if you have a chance to ask her about it. Mm-hmm. You think it's maybe, let's see, maybe about 90 to 100 people. It's not a huge place. She flies and she circles that large stone building in the center, and then she flies back here and lands right back in her little coop. And he's like, "Aye, Lily, that's a good girl. It's a good girl, Lily." And then like kind of gives her some seeds and like closes it back up again. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense to me. Guardsman friend, I feel like I really gotten to know you over the past couple of minutes. What's your name?
My name's Tommel, sir. And welcome to Pine Haven.
Tommel, pleasure to meet you. Pine Haven seems like a right sweet place. Now, I've been smelling this bread on the air. Oh, and while I'm talking to Tommel, every now and then I'll give this look back to Muriel. I know she's on edge. I know she's keeping an eye out. Mm-hmm. And if she ever like makes a sharp movement or starts to move, I want to be sure of where she's going. But I'm doing my best to just act natural with this guy.
Every time you kind of catch her, she's just giving this one, but like she still has the kind of the blanket over her, but she's.
So Tommel, as long as I'm flapping my gums with you, I just want to ask a couple of points of interest about the town. First of all, the smell of bread when I came in here is unavoidable, and it is drawing me to it like it's got a hook in me lapel. Where might I find that divine smell?
Curses. Which is funny because all the time we were talking beforehand, fine. Yep. Yeah. And now it's like, oh, bold of you to assume your equipment would function. Yeah. He's just like, Yeah, that's Serena's Bakery. She's right ahead there. You can't miss it. I can't wait to be relieved from my post to go get a nibble myself. Kind lady.
What was her
Actually,
name?
she's
Serena?
Serena.
Serena.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
She's a stout folk. Nobody makes bread like halflings.
Oh, okay. I'm thinking about the bread. I'll bet I'll find a place to sleep for the night. No problem. Not worried about that. And one last thing before I get moving. That big building over there, the tall one. Is that some sort of mayor's house, town hall sort of thing, or what am I looking at?
You see his face visibly drops when he tells you that. He goes, "Oh, that's Crestfield Manor. It's sort of suppose it's a bit of a town hall as such, but not as much in recent years. The family's sort of fallen upon difficult times."
I give this meaningful look to Muriel, and I look back at Tommel.
And she very much kind of like, he's like lean past, like staring at the building. Yeah. And then sort of like just leans back forward. Yeah.
A family that's fallen in hard times. Are these Crestfields? Did they used to be the patrons of this town?
Oh, yes. It's Crestfield coin and Crestfield labor, carved Pine Haven out of the solid rock of the mountain, they always say. Yes. It's again, it's a shame really what's befallen the family in recent times.
Have they fled the town, or are they cooped up in their house?
Oh, on occasion do you see one or two of them coming out, but he sort of like leans in and he's like, didn't they wish to gossip, especially with a newcomer to Pine Haven, you see, but they've nae had any children for some time.
Well,
it's a sad thing, really. Yeah, sad thing.
Galder is a bit perplexed by this. You know, he's a fine dwarven man, and he knows that, like, you know, dwarves with their oft 4-century-long lifespans often go for very, very long times indeed without siring any children. And so there's a moment of just like cultural disconnect here, where Tommel gets kind of this long, confused stare, and if he doesn't break the awkward silence first, eventually Galder would just go, I indeed, heaven forfend, going for some time without bearing any children. No heirs? No heirs to the family? Oh dear.
Hey, no more.
Okay. That's very interesting. Have you, this is a bit of a probing question, but have you had any unusual problems in town lately?
Give me straight persuasion.
Yeah.
When you are doing this, actually, nothing happens just yet. Although you do hear a creak of Muriel sort of like leaning forward in the back. She tries to be subtle, but again, she is large and her armor heavy. You're kind of like,
that's going to be a 15.
He just you see his brow furrows like he wants to say something, and he's like, I think I've done enough gossiping, sir. It's welcome to Pine Haven. He very much like, and he just sort of takes a step back, and he's like, enjoy your stay.
I appreciate your hospitality. I'm going to get some bread. If you're still on shift when I come out, I'll share some. Good day to you, friend.
And to you, and he turns around and he's like, "Oh, Lily, you did so good." And again, his accent very much changes when he's talking to the pigeon. You know, he's just, you know, the full like baby
Oh,
talk to as you sort of ride
all
into
pet
town.
owners will understand this.
Yeah, absolutely. Is you sort of spur your cart forward. Again, your path does take you right past Crestfield Manor, and when he tells you that that's what it is, again, it has the every sign of being a manor. I would say you, as a dwarf, have an eye for stonework. I'll give you a history check with advantage,
Yes,
to see if you
indeed.
know anything about it.
Now, Galder is a canny dwarf, but he is not a smart one, so I appreciate the advantage. That's going to be an 18. Or after a 19 on the die.
Looking at it, you realize at least the stones it's made out of are probably cut at least 400 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Based on the weathering, so it's stood here for some time. The rest of these buildings being wood, you can see kind of come and kind of go. Except for you know, there's the sort of the blacksmith's forge has kind of a stone foundation and things, but you know, most of these things are, you know, pine, cedar, wooden construction. This one building has been here a long time, and almost certainly was the first thing put on this spot.
Yeah. Now, you know, just like before, Galder's got this very long-lived sensibility about him. You know, he is stable as the earth as it goes. So a 400-year-long building is not a terrible surprise to him. But even for someone who has grown up in an ancestral hall with buildings that date back thousands of years, he gets the sense that, you know, when one building has been here for 4 centuries and the others seem to rise and fall with the decades, maybe there's something afoot. Well, Muriel, I don't want to be too hasty. I don't want to jump to conclusions or anything, but I mean, if you sense something funny going on with this town, that building there sticks out like a sore thumb.
She looks up at it while you're riding by. She's like, "Yes, I don't think I like it very much, Galdir. The rest of the place seems warm and welcoming, but that place seems sad and ominous." She sort of like looks around and she's like, "Well, I could make myself known and see if that elicits a reaction, or would you rather survey things a bit more first?"
We're conspicuous enough as it is. If those people haven't come out of their house for some time, and if they are as reclusive as that guard seems to indicate, it might be in our best interest to, well, keep as low a profile as we can manage for a little bit.
While you're running, Chevy stops and bucks. She whinnies and stands up on her hind legs, which is not something she usually does.
Oh, easy there, girl. What is it? What is it? Where can I see where she's looking?
You see out right in the middle of the path, you see a small, what is probably a gnomish girl, an almost impossibly small child, standing in the middle of the, pointing at you. And she's like, "He's a spiky man!" And Chevy is reared up because the child just ran right out in front of her. She's just...
Oh, easy there, girl. You don't want to be running right in the middle of traffic.
I rolled for Chevy, and she got a 1. So Chevy's like, it's gonna bite my feet. Oh no, get it off me! Get off me! Get off me! What is it? Stop it! It's too little. So Chevy is as calm as she usually is. Yeah. Something has spooked her, definitely.
I'm leaning over the front there. Hey, come over here. Get out from in front of the hooves of the horse. What's your name, little one?
She goes, "I'm Amelia." Amelia's maybe 18 inches tall. She is tiny.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, but again, you've been around enough gnomes. In gnomish parlance, she's probably about 2.5, maybe 3.
Okay.
You know, comparatively speaking, for gnomes.
We've got a little Cindy Lou Who gnome right here.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Oh no, you go. You're describing something I want to hear.
Just a few moments later, another gnome in a petticoat in finery, with a long curly mustachio, comes out and goes, no, Amelia, oh my dear, oh my child, oh, and come like hugs her, and it's like, oh, she just got away, and I just ran out in front of that lumbering beast. It's whose horse is it? Is this your horse that almost trampled my dear Amelia?
Oh boy. Your dear Amelia almost ran out in front of my horse. I'm just a traveler, Sir Galder Bristlehide at your service. Who might you be?
Muriel leans forward and she's like, should I smite him, Balder?
Let's keep that one in reserve for now. He seems like a bit of a ponce, but he is not necessarily evil.
He's like, I'm Vassal Cloudman, and you should be more careful with that beast. And Amelia's like, no, Daddy, I ran out in front of a horse and I saw him, and I thought, he's a spiky man. Nobody else sees a spiky man here. And you notice people on the road are like, as people are wont to do, trying to be polite. You know, they have all seen you, of course. Spiky person, you know, and she's the only one that is basically one of those, just loud in the middle of the road. Yeah, pointing at you. Yeah. And he's like, are you some sort of bandit or some such? You're coming into town and your ominous armor brandished so didn't even have the decency to present yourself in your underclothes. We will not be frightened by brutes that come riding into town and they're death-dealing destriers.
I am paralyzed with laughter. Galder he is, you know, he is taking this gnome's words very personally. And he I'm gripping the edge of the cart, and I'm like, I've got my lips, and I can feel a little up there. And I say, well, now listen here. You got no right to treat a friendly dwarf that way just because I'm stuck in this goddamn suit of armor. I can't take it off to save the life of me. Oh.
Amelia looks at you and she's like, oh, he said a bad word. What do you mean you can't take it off? You just take it off. Like, yeah, you just do this. And she immediately starts like trying to remove her shirt, and her father's like, no, just you keep that on, child. What do you mean you cannot take it off?
I'm gonna stick my thumbs underneath this helmet and just try and lift it, but it's like it's been glued to my skull, and I you know, still blubbering, and I'm just like, you think that I haven't tried just because I've been cursed by a hag to wear all this armor for the rest of my bloody life? Listen, if you've been severed that cursed armor like this, you wouldn't be half as considerate as I'm being right now.
You hear from somewhere high over your head on Crestfield Manor, because there are a couple of windows that are open. Again, it's, you know, fine mountain air blowing through. You hear a voice that just says, did he say cursed? And everyone sort of like stops for a second, and they, you know, they do look, and again, they kind of give similarly to sort of how they gave you, you know, oh, hey, look at this apple type thing, you know, it's like kind of have the common decency to not make eye contact and sort of keep going about their business. And Vassal even looks up and he's like, oh dear, oh, that's Lord Calder. Lord Calder hasn't, oh, yeah, yes, my lord. He said cursed. And you hear the voice that just says, interesting. But you don't see anyone. Whoever it is, like whoever's talking out the window is directly above you, essentially. They're not leaning out. So you just don't. And Muriel sort of like looks up slightly, and she's like, "It's getting interesting in this boring town, isn't it, Galder?"
Oh, my friend. No, it's very bad indeed.
Vessel stands up again and notices that basically people are looking at him too. So he like sort of sticks his gnomish chest out, and he's small for a gnome, which you understand why his child is small for a gnomish child. And he reaches in his pocket and pulls out an elaborate clockwork chronometer of some sort that you don't quite understand. It's like whirling dials and things. He looks, he's like, yes, well, we have an appointment. Just you. And he very much pulls Amelia a little bit back, and he's like, go about being cursed. It's not spreading, is it? And he very much pulls a hanky out and kind of puts it over his mouth. And then he thinks that he actually puts it over Amelia's mouth. And you see, when he puts it over her mouth, she was about to say something, and she's like, and he's like, shh. He's not catching, is it?
Go wash your hands. Wash your whole head.
Do you by chance speak Gnomish?
I do not believe I do. Nope, just common and Dwarvish.
You've been around long enough to know that he's saying some unkind things about your hygiene as in Gnomish. Because, it's worth knowing when you're being insulted in many languages. But he just sort of like pull Amelia by the hand, and she's like, bye-bye, spiky curse man.
Bye-bye, little one.
I hope you get your helmet off, as he sort of pulls her around the corner. Yeah.
I sigh. I'll go toward Muriel. Yeah, sweet kid, at least.
She sort of looks around, and she's like, the people here seem resigned, but they don't seem distressed.
It makes me wonder how often things like that happen, How often does this Lord Calder make his booming voice known to everyone in town?
Well, and she looks at you and she's like, do we have time for lunch before we stir up this hornet's nest?
I can't go fighting evil on an empty stomach, especially not when the smell of bread is so sweet. Let's have a little something. Let's get old Chevy here stabled. No need to worry about where we're bedding for the night. That can come after. Yeah, food first.
It is easy to stable Chevy. There is a place that just for a couple of coins they'll keep an eye on her and park your wagon. You realize once she pretty quickly calms down after that little bit of excitement. That just takes an apple, one of her favorites, a carrot, and she's good as new. And as you look out across the town, there is Serena's Bakery.
Nice.
There is an inn you can make out, a tavern of some sort. Like you sound the sound of merriment and ale also washes across your dwarven nose. And there's the things you would expect to find here. There's woodworking shops. There's a tanner. There's a hunting supplies. Like everything you'd expect to kind of find in a quaint frontier town. The only thing that is anomalous again is the manor in the middle, for the Crestfield Manor. It's almost like if someone dropped this like huge edifice and then built a normal town around it. There's mining supplies, logging supplies, people that make clothing. Just it's life. You realize this is very much the kind of place that people are born here and die here, having ranged maybe 10 miles in either direction, essentially. There are children running around, intermittently. Amelia's not the only one. You see what is almost certainly a school of some sort. You see a small shrine to Tyr that is set up. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna try and keep a low-ish profile while having bread, having a drink, recovering from the road for maybe about an hour. I can lower the kind of metal face mask on the helmet just enough to get my mouth out so I can eat, but that's about the extent of the motion of this armor. Do let me know if I hear people talking, if people are remarking upon this disturbance from Lord Calder. But yeah,
you can give me perception with advantage, because your advantage will simulate the fact that Muriel's listening too.
Got it. Hey, that's a natural 20.
Hey, I will say the only house rule I tend to play with is that a 1 always fails and a 20 always succeeds, even on skill checks.
I'm good on that.
You notice, it's funny that Muriel, by her very nature, is always very regal. Honestly, she's divine. But when you put a bowl of gruel and a piece of bread in front of her, like, she just goes in on it like Chevy on a bag of oats. I mean, she's or like packs it away. Which is amazing, really, that as much as she eats, her armor always seems to fit. That's weird. It's weird, Galdir.
It's like divine metabolism.
It is, man. She just like burns it. She burns it.
Some people are just blessed that way.
The glow is from the furnace.
Yeah.
As she's eating and you are enjoying the food, and it is very good. It's homemade, fresh. It is much different than the crude rations and foraging you've been having over the last few days, and it is a welcome bit of peace. On a natural 20, you hear a few different things. Multiple people, of course, are commenting and remarking on your spiked armor because they don't often see its like around here. A not insignificant number of people are wondering if you are some sort of bandit, and they're kind of making it known that it's like they amongst themselves having no idea that you can hear them, or like, my sword stands ready if he tries anything, all that armor, he still got eye slots, the woman that is behind the counter, Serena, you overhear her when she's in the back, basically asking that you be given a second portion, and that poor dear, she basically very much sympathy, it's like, give him the loaf that's right out of the oven, and the nice cheese,
Yep.
And she is a halfling, she's middle-aged for a halfling. She's crow's feet around her eyes, but they're laugh lines. Her face is kind.
Yeah. I know the kind of face you're talking about.
You also hear a couple people that walk in after you very much say, like, Lord Calder called out from the manor, and people, oh really, the Calder, oh wow, type thing. It's ooh, but not really like I thought he was dead, but the fact that it's like whatever is up with these travelers that got a reaction out of Lord Calder must be interesting. And I will say, with a 20, if there's any particular information you were looking for, I will let you know if you've heard.
I want to know. I want to know what Lord Calder's interest in curses is.
You hear more than one person say it's because the Crestfields are cursed. It's like, oh, he's probably interested because they're cursed. But it's very matter of fact type thing. Like how we're like, yeah, the whole world's on fire. They're all like, yeah, he's interested because they're cursed. Right. And it's just common. They're all like, yeah, Anyway, so I was out logging and I saw a beaver you would not believe. I mean, yeah. And that's just, it's very matter of fact. Yeah.
Yep.
But for the most part, you know, they're sort of going along, going about their day. You realize it is sort of midday. You get the distinct impression that a lot of these people really are laborers, and the whole town kind of puts down their tools around the same time. You know, people have gone ranging and kind of come back in, and everybody's sort of gathering their meal. A few people essentially take it to go. You know, kind of come in, buy some soup and bread, and leave again. They turn and look at you. Most of them are polite. You know, nobody else really mean mugs you, but of course they are like. And I will say one other thing. You notice with a natural 20, a guard has been following you fairly effectively. It is not Tommel. And even when you're inside, they're outside, but they're very much looking at you through the window.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Galder is for the most part, Galder is a turn the other cheek kind of guy. You know, he's a sweetheart, but it hurts. You know, he notices it. He's a bit grim. Like, you know, you can see the fuck this shit building within him just a little bit. But you know, he's still soft spoken. He's still kind. There will be a time when it is let out. Okay.
So Muriel is very oblivious to this. The head on the swivel sentinel of justice you found that was in the cart has completely disappeared in the face of this bread and cheese and soup. And she's she's like, Galder.
Man, me too, though.
She's like, come. And she actually sees the look in your eyes, and she just like kind of pushes the bowl towards you with her gauntleted hand, and she's like, eat, my friend. Enjoy this small bit of comfort.
You're right. I should. All right. And I dig in. And I really do go to it with gusto. So we spend our, you know, half hour eating, recovering from the road. But when all that is done, I'll stand up and I'll look at her and say, all right, we got a matter to investigate. Something is... these people are all fine folk, but something is dodgy about that damned house.
She just sort of kind of like, even though she's still covered under the blanket and just like fully wrapped up like a pilgrim, she just taps her chest and you hear like the loud clink of the armor. She's like, just say when.
All right. Let's start by taking a look at the place. I know you can fly, but I'm 300 pounds of rock and steel. I can't be getting up those high windows.
She's like, it's a strength. It's a good look on you. It's fine. Yes. Yeah. She's
All
like,
right.
not everyone can be so steadfast.
Okay.
You see, she walks over to Serena, the baker who is serving food, and she turns around and smiles, and you see Muriel just sort of looks at them for a moment, and she's like,
oh, lost you.
she says, thank you for your kindness. Have a wonderful day. And you see what you've seen her do 100 times, where their eyes widen a little and they stand up a little straighter and their shoulders are a little squarer. And they just sort of nod and they go back to like kneading bread, like, yeah, you know, like, yeah, we're making bread, you know. And she turns around and smiles at you and is like, let us depart.
Your guidance is always appreciated. I love seeing you do that.
Just doing my part to raise spirits.
So this house, we walk out into the middle of town. We head over towards the house. It's a big stone building, 3 stories tall, definitely a couple of windows.
There's a staircase that sort of goes up to double doors. You very much can see how it would double as a town hall, like assembly area. Like it is much grand manner as it is, you know, community hub. But the doors are definitely closed. and the main doors are closed, and there is a guard, only one guard, standing out front that looks like an older, sort of wizened man, human with salt and pepper hair, who is standing there with a spear. But I mean, he's by no means ultra vigilant. Like as people are walking by, it's like, "Hi, hey, how you doing? Oh, that's a great crop you got there. Beaver was the size of your torso. It was. Wow." Just as people are going by. Yeah.
Beaver. I'm going to turn to Muriel and just say, I love the quaint small town feel.
She's like, it is relaxing. I just wish that every time we came to these sort of places and turned those stones over, we didn't tend to find such terrible things underneath.
Ain't that the truth? Well, hopefully these people will be happier. Maybe not immediately after we turn their world on its head, but hopefully in the long run.
It's like surgery, my friend. It might hurt in the short term, but it's necessary to healing. And when she says that to you, she very much, her eye just sort of like falls on your armor a little bit for a second, and she looks you back in the eye again.
I don't say anything to her about that. That gives me the willies a little bit. I am just going to keep on moving. And I think the best option right now is the straightforward one. If these people will just let us in, then we don't have any problem. So let's go in.
How prominent is Galdir's axe? Like, are you carrying around your weapon, or do you have? Is it slung over your back? Are we? What silhouette are you presenting here?
Not an axe, but a morning star. But Galdir's actually got. Actually, he does have axes. Galdir has a fair number of weapons on his person. He's got 2 hand axes, he's got a javelin, he's got a light hammer, he's got his morning star. He actually has something that might, to a modern observer, look a bit like a golf bag. It's a big leather thing that's as tall as he is. And his morning star, his main weapon, is on his hip. It's on his belt. But these throwing weapons, the hammer, the axes, the javelin, they are all safely stowed in this sort of golf bag of weaponry that he carries over his left shoulder at all times.
Muriel leans in and she's like, so are we doing this like always? That you mentioned the flood, and that means go.
All right. If the flood is going to be, then I'll mention the flood. Let's try and keep it a calm river for now. But if the flood comes, the flood comes. There's nothing about it.
She just sort of stops, and she like looks around at the town, and she looks at you again for a second, and she says, "Can I ask you an unusual question?"
I'll stop in my tracks and turn to her and look her in the eye and say, "Aye, what is it?"
I know why I do what I do. It's what I am. It's what I was created for. But why do you do this? Why do you fight so hard to help these people that always look at you so strangely?
You really want to know the answer, Muriel?
I've tried to figure it out, but it's eluded me. All this time together, I still don't understand why you haven't just given into hopeless and despair and burying yourself in your cups.
You met me that day we met each other. I was lost on the trail, in the middle of the wilderness, half dead of thirst, and stuck in this damned spiked suit. You found me just a few days after I tangled with someone who wasn't what he appeared to be. I tried to make a friend. I tried to put my trust in someone who I believed was trustworthy. And that trust was betrayed. The person who I was traveling with before you was not an honorable man, but a hag in disguise.
Mm.
And I first put on this spiked armor. You know, this spiked armor was given to me by my father and my mother. I put it on because it would protect me while I was out in the wilderness. The dwarves who are trained the way I am use their armor not just as a way to defend themselves passively, but to do it actively. You know, and when people get too close, you wrap your arms around them and you squeeze them until they stop moving. And that works against wolves. It works against brigands. You know, eventually they'll call for uncle and want to leave. But they're always able to take the armor off when you're not fighting. When you want to be close with someone, you want to be friends. And that person whom I was traveling with knew that that was the most important thing to me. And that friendship, that love. And so, when my trust was betrayed, that hag took away that thing, that most important thing to me. Made it so that I couldn't get close to anyone ever again. And, you know, the reason I fight Muriel is because I'm fighting for the day that I'll find someone who can help me get this armor off. Because until that day comes, until I am able to show someone through my deeds, and not just my words, that I'm deserving of their love and their power, the power to break this damned curse, I might as well use it, the anger and the frustration and the sorrow, for whatever good that can come of it. That's why I fight Muriel. Not because I was born to do it. I admire you greatly. But I took on this cause because it's the only other thing that I can bring myself to do. And I turn and I keep walking towards the manor.
While you're walking, she just kind of quietly says, there's only one small thing that I think you misunderstand about me, Galdir.
And I'll stop about 10 paces out.
I didn't just save you starving in the woods and alone. I'm still saving you while you're starving in the woods and alone.
Maybe.
She puts a hand on your shoulder, spikes and all, and she says, I wish it were within my power to lift this burden. It isn't, but it is within my power to make sure that you can share the load. Go ahead.
Thank you.
And she leans in very closely to you, and you see her eyes like glow slightly with the symbol on her forehead, and she says, if things go wrong in here, I'll let you have the first one. And she does wink at you.
and Galder laughs. Yeah, you can. It's visible now. He's got a glint in his eye.
She turns and looks at the guard, and she's like, "Can I try one this time?"
Absolutely.
She sort of like stands between you and the guard and rips the blanket off, and her wings go out. Like, it's like she erupts in a golden glow. And she just points at him and says, "Open the door." And you see everyone stops what they're doing. Like you're like, your people like drop jars and things as she's just standing there pointing at the man. And he sort of like drops his spear and kind of like clatters to the door and like opens it and runs away. And then she looks back at you and like pulls her wings in. It's like, feels good to be direct sometimes, right?
That was a downside quicker than whatever the hell I was going to do up there. Good. A direct approach is what we need.
Do you head in?
Oh, yeah.
When you get inside, Muriel closes the door and locks it. And it is what you can tell would have been a grand parlor. It is clean, but it is very cold. One thing you noticed, especially with your high perception earlier, is most of the houses had a fire burning. Again, it's a brisk day, you know, but it's, you know, you kind of probably want to go somewhere to warm your hands up. But there's nothing in here. No, the hearth is not lit. There are no candles. Everything is immaculate, but it is clinical. It's like being in a museum. There is no dust, but it doesn't really feel lived in at all. There is, you can see there is a large room where you see people could gather. There's another room sort of off to the right where there's a table that could comfortably sit probably 12, maybe 14 people, especially if they were small folk. There is a sitting room where over the hearth there is a huge painting of a man that dominates the space. He is wearing blue armor with an emblazoned pine tree right in the middle of it. And he looks shining and beautiful. And he's standing with his sword sort of resting on his shoulder. He looks very cocky in the painting.
Perhaps this is our friend Lord Calder.
You see there is a staircase that leads upwards, and there is like a door on the side of the staircase that presumably leads somewhere down below. You know, the voice you heard before was coming from somewhere in the higher up floors.
Right. I turn to Muriel and say, well, we could investigate down here, but this is more of a untouched looking community center sort of thing. I don't think we'll find too much of interest. Unless this Calder guy has some sort of, you know, elaborate puzzle set up in his house, I think we might just want to head right up and deal with the problem directly. Direct approach and all that, aye?
Just let me know when the flood hits. And she just sort of like taps her sword. Presumes you all start making your way upstairs?
Oh, yeah.
Again, you've been enough places, Galdir. A place like this should have servants all over the place, you know, doing things, cleaning, you know, like no one of means to have a place like this cleans things on their own. And when you come up the stairs, you do notice a feather duster making its way down the wall, dusting. You don't see anything holding it in place. It's just cleaning.
Some kind of magic. This Lord Calder, he may be cursed, but he's got some magical power of his own, I wager.
So it would seem.
Aye, all right. Let's be on our guard for that. I
I hate to say it, but magic has never been my strong suit, and not the defense against magic either. So, if we can, if you can handle the magic and I can handle the hurting, maybe we'll be okay.
She looks at you and she's like, I already said you could have the first one. Now you're just being greedy, Galdir. And she turns and you see there is the way it comes up to a landing and there is a second floor. This one also feels like it probably was once bedrooms that have been semi-repurposed into offices. They're still warm, there's settees in them, but it is more almost like a communal working spaces up here. Mm-hmm. And at the far end of the floor there is another staircase that goes upwards. And again, you see no signs of anyone. Although once you see that duster float by, as you notice, every once in a while on some of the desks, you see like books being stacked up, but through a force that you don't see, or just small things. You know, pillows being fluffed every once in a while.
Who is this guy trying to impress with all this? Pillows being fluffed, dust being cleaned. Does he expect to have guests? Something sits ill with me about all of this. I'm going to... I want to head up the stairs, but before I do that, I want to peer around this floor just a little bit. I want to see if there's anything else out of the ordinary here.
You can, well, would you like to take 10 or are you trying to move quick?
I don't feel like I'm in a rush, no.
Okay. You can give me an investigation check, and you can roll with advantage because again, we will simulate your rolling for Miriam as well, and you can take 10 on it. Actually, right. I just kind of rolled for her. I rolled pretty well. I'll let you roll. If you roll worse than I did, I will substitute my roll.
I have got a 19 on investigation.
Well, I had rolled 18, so there you go. Especially with your take 10, as you like sort of carefully look through here, you notice there is one room that is different than all the rest. It is a ladies' sitting room. It is stacked up with lace and finery, the likes of which, you know, has come from far and wide. It would have taken a great amount of difficulty to acquire all of these things. There is also a jewel inlaid short sword that is sitting kind of on a rack, like on the wall, like it's been, you know, mounted like a showpiece. And there is like a silken settee. And there's also art supplies. There's like an easel and
sorry, a silken what now?
Settee.
Oh, God.
Yeah. A little sitting couch.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
That word's in my brain somewhere. Where is it?
You also realize that there is a window from this room that is open, but no wind is blowing through the window. And with a 19, you think that wherever that voice you came from maybe was here. Could have been higher up, but it would have been like roughly here on the building. Could have been the floor above, though.
I will take note of that window, but the first thing I'm drawn to is that short sword. I'm going to walk over towards it. I'm going to just sort of casually talk aloud, partially to Muriel, partially just to myself. You know, if just this sword were sold off to a dwarf hold somewhere, I'll bet the amount of gold that would come flowing back into this town would help these people build some stone buildings, not just these flimsy, wooden ones. Our lives would be so much better just because of this one piece of jewelry that the guy isn't even looking at.
Yeah, it's immaculate. You could probably feed this village for a year if you sold it to the right person. It's immaculate.
Yeah, I'm gonna grab it by the handle and take it down if I can.
Yeah, it comes down. It's which is odd because again, it's completely unguarded. If you inspect it, it is again immaculate craftsmanship. It's very well made.
Yeah, I do give it a look over.
The jewels are real. The blade is still sharp and sparkling, despite who knows how long it's sat here.
Might be magic?
Do you have any way to know?
I don't think so.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe. Yeah.
Is there a scabbard with this sword, or is it just a blade?
It is the jewels are the scabbard is jeweled. The blade itself is not.
You know, in that case, then I will wear the sword on my belt. If it is in perfect condition after all these years, there is this little glimmer in Galder's mind that says, you know, maybe I should hold on to this for now.
When you go to put it on your belt, a voice whispers in your ear, "Please put that back."
I'll look around.
You don't see anybody.
I know that it's not mine to take. I know that I'm still a master of the house here. But you know, when it comes right down to it, I don't think you're very good for the people of this town. Are you Lord Calder?
Bold assumption from a cursed dwarf who's been in town for an hour. Unless you are, in fact, just a common bandit to be dealt with as such.
I may be new to town, my friend. And I may be cursed, But you have been lurking in this house, a blight on the people of this town, living in luxury, with jewels and finery that you don't even hire a cleaner to clean for you with your magic. Something tells me that the people of this town would be far better off without you.
I don't keep a staff anymore because I do not require one. I sent those people to their homes and their families so that they might be clear of whatever is afflicting this place. I ask you again, dwarf, return that blade to the wall, or I shall become cross.
Muriel, are you sensing anything?
She's looking around and she's like, I don't know what you mean, Galdir. You realize she cannot hear whatever's talking to you. She's standing there, she's looking around the room still.
There's a voice in me head. Probably the master of the house. I'm going to speak up louder. I'm going to look towards the ceiling. I called her. You know, I'll put the sword back. But you got to tell me something. What's afflicting this house? Why is it stuck in here? Why is the rest of the village going about their business unaffected, talking in whispers and concerned about your manor and your family tree, your inability to sire an heir? What's the problem, Calder?
Return that sword, and you might join me upstairs, and I will enlighten you.
All right. All right, Calder. Have it your way. And I'm going to put the sword back up on the mantle. And I'm going to say to Muriel, Muriel, I suspect that the master of this house may not be alive anymore. He says there's some kind of affliction upon the manor, that he no longer needed servants.
Something tells me that either he is, a wizard that dabbled in power beyond his control and is, somehow trapped in the world between worlds or something, or that he is a restless spirit, or all that would explain why he's not able to, continue the Crestfield family. So, just be on your guard, I suppose. We're probably going into this one hard.
She looks around the room and she's like, if what you say is true, then we shall liberate this sad creature.
Aye.
And she looks around and she's like, this place, it is warm. No other place in here is. Interesting.
Do I sense this warmth as well?
It's just this is the aesthetic of it. It is nice. The soft pillows, the pretty things. Even the sword is. I mean, the rest of this is relatively austere. This is the one room that seems to have any sort of niceness, kindness to it. The rest of it is very blandly functional.
You said it appeared to be a lady's chamber. Is that correct? Just by the decoration?
In the sense that things are, most of them are a smaller scale, not just the pastel colors, but it just, like you wouldn't fit on any of this furniture.
Oh, my.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe even a child's room?
It's possible. Maybe a child, maybe a petite woman. It's hard to say.
He really didn't want me taking that sword. I think it belonged to someone he cared about very much. Probably someone that he lost. I feel sorry for this guy, but I'm just making up stories in my head, letting my imagination run wild with me. I
suppose we can go find out.
Yeah, I give myself a little slap on the cheek as I head towards the stairs. I won't try and sympathize with this guy before I know what he's actually like. All right, up I go.
As you all make your way up the stairs, the construction changes to a very dark wood, and the stairs get creaky with disuse. And at the top, there is no door. It just sort of like opens up into a landing where the top floor is the size of the other two, but there are no walls, which makes it very large. It is dimly lit up here. There are no windows. You, while have no head for magic, very much understand, at least you've seen a wizard study before. There are books and scrolls all over the place. There are elaborate charts that look like some sort of anatomy charts that don't necessarily make sense, but really you understand them in the sense that it's you know enough about a body to know where to hit it to make it drop. And there are charts everywhere.
Yes, I'm a reverse doctor.
You are a reverse doctor. Yeah, you're an involuntary surgeon. Yes. And in the middle of the room, you see a woman floating, like she's laying on a bed, but there's nothing underneath her. And bedclothes are draped, and her hair is draped, and she has her hands over her chest. And at the far side of the room, at the desk, you see what looks like an old man. His face is severe, with hard lines. And he is wearing what was probably once a very nice silken robe that is just sort of gray and tattered now. And on the desk in front of him are books and potions and things lined up. And he just sort of sits stroking his beard on the far side of the room when you come in.
Lord Calder, I presume.
You presume correctly. Who do I have the pleasure of addressing?
You're speaking with a dwarf named Golder Bristlehide. It's a pleasure to make your acquaintance, sir.
Thank you for returning the sword to its proper place. I trust you and your associate have not chosen to steal anything else from me.
No.
I've already had a great deal taken.
Well, the case may be, we're not bandits, Despite the look of things, we're not here to pillage or to take things that don't belong to us. It's just this, Lord Calder. The people in town are all afraid to talk about you and your family. There are rumors that spread throughout the townsfolk. I want to know what you're doing here, and if you're even alive.
Sadly, yes, I am. Tell me, dwarf, is it true that you are afflicted by a curse?
I be.
Is it possible that you might help me escape from mine? And that's actually a good place for us to take a little break. So, so we'll do a quick 10 here, so we can hydrate and jump back in. So 10 minutes, we'll be back for a silky smooth and uneventful conclusion to this adventure. Remember, if you have any questions for Mr. James J. Haeck, write them in chat with a capital question in front of it, and we'll be right back. Yeah, and then rocks fall and everybody dies. That's just how you do it. Oh.
Damn you, B. Dave.
I said the quiet part loud. Whoops. We are about to jump back into it here, and we are inside of our last hour because you're too fascinating, Mr. James Haeck. But there is a question that I pulled out of here that I wanted to make sure I got to ask. Do you have any house rules? Well, this is a multi-staged question, actually. So we'll go with the first one. Do you have any house rules that you like to use in D&D, or do you run the game's rules as written?
It's a good question. My games tend to move towards the rules as written side, but it's more of I do that mostly because I want to have a more thorough understanding of the game I'm writing for. Right, if I weren't writing for D&D, I would probably do a lot more in terms of house ruling. But because I want to make sure that my knowledge is correct in terms of writing, not in terms of playing, I tend to keep things pretty tight. There's a couple though. There was one I was talking with Jeremy Crawford about on Twitter a day or two ago, and it was about initiative. Initiative is kind of one of those it's bad, but it's the best we got things that have been with RPGs for a very long time. And I think for the most part, initiative works pretty fine for D&D. Like, it's turn-based combat. It's fine. But the places where initiative breaks down for me are where surprise attacks and what's the word I'm looking for? Like it's not an attack from surprise, but an unexpected attack or a first strike happens.
Like an ambush?
Yeah, well, kind of, because like in D&D 5th edition, the surprise rules are like you get surprise if the other side had no idea you were there. They couldn't see you, they couldn't hear you, they were truly caught by surprise. But if you're like in a crowded ballroom and everyone's dancing, but one person has a knife, you know they're there, and you might not have been expecting the attack, so the attack would have advantage. But, as soon as the guy attacks, you're not surprised, so there's no like special skip everyone's turn who isn't surprised thing going on. It's the person pulls the knife out, initiative is rolled, and it's very possible that you can strike back before the knife strikes you. And I think there are situations where that's okay, but I really like it when my players are like, okay, I've had enough negotiating. It is time for the claws to come out. Go. We're like, okay, good. The person who declared that, combat is starting, that I'm going first, you go first. Just like your turn for the first round of initiative, you roll initiative like everyone else. So maybe you roll a 6, but for the first turn, you go at the top. You skip that turn on 6. And then for the rest of the combat, you're on 6, but you had the first shot that first round.
the discussion got a little bit like not hairy, but inspired on Twitter the other day. And there were definitely some people who were like, well, this would just cause, this really encourages combat. My players, hardly role play anyway. This would just encourage them to break off negotiations instantly and alpha strike the guy. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's why it's my house rule and not something I want to be included in the game. It's not a rule for everyone. But my players are very good about wanting to role play all the time, and they really get into their characters, and they wouldn't attack unless it's in their character's interest, in their character's personality. So I'm like, if there comes a moment when you want to have combat be like a part of your role playing decision, which it is for them, then go. I want to reward that.
Yeah. Now that makes sense. I think for me, the only house rules are and that makes sense why you try and stick as close to it as possible. I do the same thing when I'm streaming. I try and show the game as it's written. Except that 1 and that 20 thing. I do that.
Yeah.
I do that. The other thing I do is I tend to ignore passive perception and passive investigation. I don't overtly don't do it. I just hate the idea that you can be worse at something by trying.
Yeah, that's fair.
And the opposite is just as unfulfilling. Like, you walk through the room, there's a hidden passage behind the painting. What? You know what I mean? Like, it's just they didn't earn it. So either way, that's the thing I don't like. Are there any third-party supplements or Unearthed Arcana materials that you are fond of?
That I'm fond of. This is a tough question because for the most part, I broadly know what the status of UA is, like if it's slotted to go into a book in the future or not. So UA, I use if my players want to use it, but I try not to get into it because I feel like I'm a bit too close to the material. So I'm like, whatever. I've got a battlesmith, an armor artificer in my current home campaign, and a battlesmith actually in a different one. And the armor artificer is very fun. I love running that character.
As far as shout out to Avron, our homie.
Oh yeah, my boss runs one too. Those thunder gauntlets are rad. I love those. As far as third party goes, you can never go wrong with Kobold Press. I've written for them, so obviously I'm biased, but I've got their Tome of Beasts, I've got their Creature Codex on my bookshelf. I love Matt Colville's Strongholds and Followers also too. I haven't used it, but it's such a pretty book and it's such a good read. It feels like such a cool and in-depth system for people who like in-depth systems. And Strongholds and Followers I like for another reason, because it has Matt Colville's voice all over it. This is kind of weird. If you read a lot of D&D books, like I do, that there's kind of this middle of the road voice that D&D books take, and I think that's appropriate for the material. It's this very straightforward, declarative sort of thing that makes no assumptions about who is writing or who is reading. Matt Colville's Strongholds and Followers is very clearly written by Matt Colville, and I find that very refreshing, even if it makes it a little bit less easy to read from an analytical D&D style perspective. It's very entertaining.
That is literally what the people paid for.
Yeah, it's what they paid, $2 million for. So those are the third-party materials I love. I don't venture out into third-party as often as I would like, just because there's so much D&D in my brain already. I can't. I would rather spend my downtime making my own campaign stuff than going on to third-party waters. But
it becomes hard to parse. Again, you're writing official stuff, and then you draw on some rule that you don't even realize you're doing it, and then it's a problem. That's why a lot of time, whatever genre I'm writing at the time, I don't read a lot of it because I find I unconsciously steal things.
Yeah,
I don't mean to, but I go watch Star Trek First Contact, and mysteriously all of my antagonists are, robotic zombie creatures now.
Right.
And I'm like, this is new and fresh, Last question. If you're currently running a D&D game, what setting is it, or is it homebrew?
I am running a D&D game right now. I've got one on hiatus and one active. And both of them are homebrew worlds, and they're different worlds, too. I like worlds that have a story to tell. I respect campaign settings that are designed to house as many stories as possible. That's a good function for them to have, because there's going to be a lot of players playing in the Forgotten Realms or in Eberron or in whatever setting you have. So it makes sense that when you publish a setting book, you start with like 20 plates spinning in the air already. But when I run a game, I want to create a world that facilitates the characters my players are playing as. My current setting is this sort of... I'm coming back to Matt Colville again. Matt Colville once said that the greatest D&D setting in the world is the area around the Mediterranean Ocean. It's wildly multicultural. There are all sorts of different conflicts and friendships happening all at once. There's a lot of travel to be had, a ton of different nations and politics, and all these myths. And, you know, if you're going fantasy, push the monsters of these different cultural groups all over the place. So, you know, you've got Greek and Roman and Persian and Carthaginian and all this stuff going on. And so I took that to heart, and I have this setting that is very much inspired by not necessarily the cultures of the Mediterranean, but the sort of geopolitical soup that is the ancient world Mediterranean. So they've got this one island city called the Isle of the Dawn that they use as their home base. And the adventurers will go out to one of 5 nations on these sort of Witcher-like contracts. And certainly every time they go out, they will get in over their heads and find that even though their contract asks them to do one thing, there is a much deeper mess that they have stepped right into as they're out there. And then they'll go back home and they'll take some downtime for a little while, work on learning feats or tools or skills, and then they'll hear of a new quest that's popped up on the board, or a new crop of quests, really, and they'll think, well, we'll decide over the break, and we want to go to Perdeca this time, and we will hunt down the great wolf of the Perdecan plains, or something like that. And it's very fun. It's very player driven, and that's what I love about D&D.
I mean, the best stuff is.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of player-driven, let us return to Crestfield Manor.
Yes, let us do this. I'm happy to talk more, but we have a lord to deal with.
That is true. That is true. Again, you are on the 3rd floor of Crestfield Manor, which is open and sprawling Wizard's Tower. In the middle of the room, there is a woman floating in midair.
Mm-hmm.
Like she looks like she's sleeping if she were laying on a bed, if not the fact that she is suspended by absolute nothingness. And this pale, severe man sitting at the desk across the way has asked you, if it is true that you are afflicted by a curse, perhaps you can help me break mine.
I am cursed, Lord Calder. What afflicts you?
He looks sort of mournfully ahead. He's like, this is Tarasilla, my stepdaughter. Actually not stepdaughter, daughter-in-law, sorry. My daughter-in-law. Would make a perception check. You can also roll advantage to simulate what Muriel might see.
With advantage, that is a 13.
I will say, well, do you approach or do you basically stay by the stairs? Like, do you make your way into the room?
I'll walk forward. I will keep my hand on the grip of my Morning Star. I'm not going to be subtle about it, but I'm also not, drawing a weapon.
As you get slightly closer to this woman, you notice there is a small bump in her gown. She is pregnant.
Is she... What has happened to her?
She is suspended. I lost my son, Renan, and I attempted to intervene. I was in error.
You lost your son.
When I feared I would lose Tarasilla as well, and my grandson. I could not let that happen. But I tried not to repeat the mistake I made with Renan. He motions his hand, and you see the board where all of the outlines of the body on it are literally flips over. Like in our world, what would be like a chalkboard flips over, and on the other side there are elaborate arcane scrawlings written around a body that is like laying on a slab. It's all drawn, of course, but it's like equations and things and calculations written. I realize Arcana is not your strong suit, but you can still make an Arcana check. The fates may decide that you understand what this is.
That's an 11.
It is definitely magic. You're like, oh, that's a spell of some sort. you don't necessarily know its type, but it's like it's not it's not poetry or any. It's magical formulae.
Sure. Okay. Who placed this curse upon her? Upon all of you?
She is not cursed. She has been protected and kept safe from it so that it cannot take her life. I acted too slowly to save my wife or my other children. My mistake with Renan has cost us all. And now Tarasilla and her child are our only hope. But they cannot awaken until... And he does, like, look down for a second. My previous mistakes are rectified.
And what might your previous mistakes be?
My son was struck down in battle. I was not prepared to lose him, so I attempted to bring him back to mixed success.
This curse, the curse of the gods, to punish you for your hubris, your necromancy.
He leans back in his chair and he's like, gods, what do they care about us? Where was Tyr when my son took an arrow in his throat, fighting to defend a group of loggers from bandits? Where was Selene when I fell to my knees, crying out as my wife lay dying from a fever? Gods. But if they wish to punish someone, they should punish me, not her. And when you say that, he does, like, you see he sort of casts his eyes towards a corner that in and of itself doesn't seem conspicuous, but you know that little shrine to Tyr is very much in the direction he's looking. With blatant disdain on his face.
No. And yet you keep a shrine to him in your study. That's just how it is. So, I want to free you of this affliction. You say that your wife has been put in suspended animation because you do not wish for her to die.
His wife is dead.
Oh,
This
yeah,
is his
daughter-in-law.
Yeah, who is pregnant. Yes.
So you've placed your daughter-in-law in a state of suspended animation because you want to keep her safe from this curse. You've talked an awful lot about your mistakes and why the curse has happened. I'm not sure I fully understand what your curse is.
He stands up, and you notice when he stands up, the chair moves back out of his way. And he walks slowly to the other side of the desk, still 20, 30 feet away from you, looking at her, and he says, I told you I tried to bring my son back to mixed success. In the family crypts below this very building, he roams. I have managed to establish wards to keep him contained, but it requires my constant concentration, which is why I do not leave this place, and why I have no servants and I take no guests, should he get loose. But you, and he does come a step closer, and he's like, and your divine friend here might be capable of ending his cursed incarnation.
This guy is unnerving, but do I sense that he is being deceitful with me?
Give me an insight check. Again, you can roll with advantage to simulate Muriel's insight as well.
Thank you, Muriel. With advantage, that's going to be 18 plus 1, 19.
He is skeeve, but he does not seem to be lying to you.
Yeah, that's what I was afraid of. Lord Calder, I just want to get one thing straight. Why is Terracilla suspended like this? Is this one of your wards? Is your son the only thing that is dangerous about this house?
I put her in this state to ensure she survives. Were my son put to his final rest, she could be released and return to her life. And hopefully produce a healthy heir so that our family might continue in strength and glory. The Crestfields have lived here for centuries. I would have it we live here for centuries more.
I understand, Lord Calder. And I turn around to head towards the door, and when I'm about halfway there, I'll stop and turn around and look back to him. Lord Calder, I'm sympathetic to your plight, from one cursed man to another. But it sounds like you Crestfields have been neglecting the people that you are supposed to protect for quite some time. Your house, filled with finery, built of sturdy stones, while your people lose their houses to storm and frost and banditry every couple of years. What is it that the Crestfields do for this little town of Pinehaven?
He comes closer to where he still doesn't walk past her to get to you. And he says, I have protected the only people. And then he turns and walks back to his desk.
The only people? Muriel,
the
only people?
And he just sits down and goes back to writing. And she's still looking at him. And you see like her eyes are blazing. And she's like, I think he only cares about his family, Galdir.
Aye, that's the impression I'm getting too. Ah, God damn it. Ugh. You know, back in the Dwarven Halls, we have a saying, and it's that the leader of a clan must provide for the whole family, not just the ones that are related to him.
She looks down at you and she's like, I should like to visit these Dwarven Halls.
I should very much like to take you there.
She looks at you for a second and she's like, although I should fear that I may not fit inside. And she still like looks at you like with her eyes gleaming. One thing you've come to know about her is honestly, the more dangerous things get, it's almost like the better mood she gets into, where she's like, oh, okay, it's terrible. Great. Yeah, let's do it. Yeah. And she's like, so shall we go pay a visit to Lord Renan Crestfield?
Yes. We ought to do that. And I begin making my way down the stairs. And when we're, I don't care if Calder hears me say this, but I don't want to be rude by saying it within earshot of him. And as we make our way down to the second floor and begin turning down to the main floor, I say, and once this is over, we're going to have to find a way to make this Crestfield man see reason. And if that means beating it into him, I'm not above it.
She just sort of looks at you and she just nods slightly and she says, I never tire of smiting necromancers.
Right. The undead first, then its creator.
You notice when you get down to the bottom and you get back to that first floor, the door underneath the stairs opens up right when you come down.
What do I see beyond in the darkness?
It is almost immediately, like everything here is austere and wonderful. It very quickly is cut stone. Again, as a dwarf that knows such things, he said to you, it's in the family crypt below. Well, it looks like a family crypt, It also is carefully attended to a point. You realize the stairs go down about 10 feet, and although they are very old, they are still dusted and cared for. And then there's like a line, almost like where silt from a riverbank has come up, where everything is black and dirty off into the darkness.
All right. I'm going to draw my javelin from my sort of golf bag of weaponry, and I'm going to take its metal tip, and I'm just going to start banging it against the stone wall, and I'm going to say, Renan! Ding, 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 ding. Renan, you shambling beast! If you have any wit left in your rotten brain, you'll come here, and you'll meet your timely end.
Brave words.
You do have some sense.
Turn back, not but death waits for you here.
Brennan, you seem to be a man who still has his wits about him. I respect that. If you are cursed for something that weren't your fault, I respect that. I am too. I want to find a way to help you without harming you, but if harming you is the only thing that will let your soul be free, I'm prepared to do it.
You hear the rustling and clattering of bones. My family and I rule here. You do not command me.
The bodies of the dead return to the dust and clay from which they were fashioned. That I'm not much of a holy dwarf, but all of my people know that. From the earth we spring, from the earth we return. I think it's high time you return. I draw my morning star.
You have come to help. Yes.
I have.
Then I give you my word as a knight. Turn back and I shall not pursue you. Proceed, and you will join me down here forever.
You won't pursue me if I turn back. What good will it do me? What good will it do the people of this town? What good will it do your father if I turn back now?
You see out of the darkness a couple of skeletons come forward, wearing tattered gowns and finery, long since worn. And they just sort of stand there, looking at nothing in particular, and they turn and look at you through their hollow eyes. And they don't do anything. They just stand there.
Nothing to say, huh? Well, Renan, I can't say I didn't try. Muriel, let's get him.
Neither can I. Roll initiative.
18 plus 2, 20.
All right. All right, and I'll roll separately for Miriam. All right, you get to go first.
Okay. What, this terrain we're in right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's like it's a hallway.
Mm-hmm. It's like leading down into a family crypt. You can't see very far into it.
But I can see Renan. How far away from me is he?
You cannot see Renan. So far, you only see these two skeletons that are just like standing, blocking your path.
Okay. All right. Well, with 60 feet of dark vision, I'm going to keep my eyes out into the darkness as best I can.
Mm-hmm.
And I am going to... Let's see... I'm going to rush towards one of these skeletons, and with my first attack, I'm going to try and grapple it.
Okay. Go for it.
16 plus 2, 18 athletics.
Okay. It actually doesn't do terribly. It is not enough for it, though.
Okay.
You grab onto it.
It is grappled by me. It's going to take 3 piercing damage as I grapple it with my spikes.
Mm-hmm.
And I am going to use my second attack with my Morning Star. I've got this thing down on the ground. I've got, one spiked arm against its rib cage, and I'm going to try and bash the skeleton's skull in with my Morning Star. So here comes an attack.
And you have advantage. Yep.
Both rolled 15, so 15 plus 5 is 20.
That is enough to hit it.
It is going to take 7 piercing damage from my Morning Star.
Mm-hmm.
And furthermore, as a bonus action on my turn, I can use my armor to make an attack roll against it.
Okay.
That is going to be a 12 to hit.
That is not enough to hit it.
Okay. Yeah, then, I'm just trying to smash my spiked chest into it, but it does not. It goes through the bones. The spikes just don't get in there.
You see, it just sort of looks at you and its jaw just falls open. And you hear from inside the darkness That's no way to treat my cousin. And an arrow flies out of the darkness and slams into your shoulder for 11 points of damage.
Ouch.
The skeleton that is on the ground that you are grappling swings at you with its short sword, and actually does manage to stab you with the blade for 5 points of damage.
Ouch. Rude.
The other one in the finery also swings at you, but a blade just sort of like bounces off of your back as she like clatters along. And Muriel looks at you and she's like going forward and like with her wings takes off down the hallway. And you hear actually she turns back and looks at you and she's like, Galdir, you can do it. I know you can. And she gives you battlefield inspiration. So you can add a D4 to your attacks and saving throws.
Very nice. Thank you, Muriel.
You hear she flies in and she got a natural 20 on her attack roll. So you up ahead, you see, and there's a bright flash of light. As you see, she smashes into something with her sword. And in the brief illumination, you see a terrible thing. It's what looks like a knight that is covered in bones. There is a skull over his helmet. There is a rib cage over his chest with a skull in the middle of the rib cage. He has arm bones on the outside of his armor and spikes coming off of it and skulls over his knees. And he's got a gigantic sword that has bones up and down the hilt. But when she strikes him, you very much hear he and falls back a little bit. And it is your turn again. After the flash, everything is plunged into darkness again. But it is your turn again.
A spooky skeleton sandwich right there. Okay. All right. That's all right. We can make it through. I am going to use my bonus action to rage. I should have done that before. That's okay.
You were trying to be reasonable before.
Yeah.
You were trying to be reasonable.
The wrath has come out. Okay.
What does it look like when Galdir rages? When the madness comes on him?
So he's pinning down this skeleton right now, and as he gets hit by a couple of attacks, he just shouts out in anger and pounds his fist on the ground and says, "You shan't fear when a good dwarf goes to war." And I am going to unleash on this guy who I've got grappled. 2 attacks coming in from the Morning Star.
All right.
And you said they have advantage?
You have advantage on the grappled one. Yep.
Yeah. Both of those rolls are bad. Here comes another attack. Let's see if that comes out a little bit better. Hey, there we go. That's going to be a 24 to hit.
That is enough.
That Morningstar hit is going to deal 8 damage.
And you powder it. Its skull dust.
Cool.
And its supernaturally animated bones stop moving, leaving the skeleton in the ball gown there next to you and the knight that Miriam has gone forward to engage.
I'm going to...
Muriel, sorry.
That's okay. I'm going to look at that skeleton in the ball gown and just say, "You're not worth the trouble." And I'm going to run over towards Muriel so I can stand beside her. Oh, actually, hold on. I forgot to add a D4 to one of those attack rolls.
Okay.
Now that's actually going to be a 15 now.
So I will say that the first one, that first attack would have been enough to destroy that skeleton. It only had 3 points of damage. So instead, we can say that second attack would have hit this skeleton, which was how much damage?
That second attack is going to be 9 damage, or 11 damage because I'm raging.
She looks at you, and you smash the Morning Star into her ribs and shatters.
Oh.
I'm glad you did that first, because I would have been forced to do an attack of opportunity after saying how much I hate the rule of attack of opportunity. So yes. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I smash it down to the ground, and then I say, you weren't worth the trouble. And then I'm going to rush off towards Muriel and the knight. Renan! God's sake, you're just making things worse. Lay down your arms. Pass into the next life. Just let us do it for you.
He turns and looks at you. And hold on a second here. He, while fighting with Miriam, you're moving up towards him?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. He looks at you and he just says, I will break your angel, and then I will break you. And begins to swing with his greatsword. And let's see. He smashes into Muriel with his sword, boom, like stumbling her backwards, and he swings again and she blocks it, and he comes up again and slashes into her again. For the first time that you can remember, you hear her and you smell her blood as he has injured her. Her face is still resolute and angry, but you know she has been damaged by this. He got her with 2 very good hits.
Youch.
Although that makes it her turn. Let's see if she and she got a big old 1. So she stumbles back and like swings wildly, and he just like steps to the side and just goes, temper. And it is your turn again.
Renan, my sympathy for you is wearing thin. I am going to leap at him. Mm-hmm. And just like before, I am going to try and grapple him as well with my first attack. Here comes an athletics check. That is going to be 14 plus 4, 18.
Okay. You are able to grab him.
This is like this tiny little ball of kinetic energy just kind of leaps at him, and I grab him by that skull on his breastplate, and I pound him down into the ground. Back to dust with you. And I'm going to make 1 Morningstar attack.
Okay.
15 plus 5, 20.
That is enough to hit him.
For 10 piercing. And now I'm going to kind of bring down a spiked elbow onto him with my armor spike as a bonus action.
Make a dexterity save.
Oh, okay. So that second attack, that's a 3 plus 5, 8. That attack misses. But here comes a dexterity save. 15 plus 2, 17.
Let's see. Hang on. 7. Okay, 17. When you hit him, green flames erupt around you.
Green flame!
For 11 points of damage.
Oof.
And he just says, burn! How much damage was that you did to him total?
From my Morningstar was 8 damage.
Okay. You do, however, have him grappled.
Yes, he is grappled on the ground.
Okay. Was that it for you?
Yeah, I made another attack, but it just kind of spiked the ground. That is it for my turn.
All right. From him being grappled, does he automatically have disadvantage for me? I don't think he does. You've got advantage against him, but he does not automatically have disadvantage against you.
I think that's right. Yeah.
Right. Hold on here. No, he got you once. Hang on, let me make sure I'm doing this by the book here. he swings with his sword awkwardly from the ground. How many hit points do you have left?
I have 39 hit points left, and because I'm raging, I am resistant to a lot of stuff.
I thought
Oh,
so.
you know what? Hold on. A prone creature does have disadvantage on attack rolls.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, then in that case, he misses. Because he would have hit you twice, and now he hits you 0 times. So,
right. Thank you,
he's this great sword again. It is unwieldy in the best of times, and trying to like one arm it at you while you and Miriam are kind of stomping on him is difficult. So that was it for him. She comes forward again. Remember your D4 and your attacks and saves, by the way.
And does that last for? Does she like do that every single turn?
She does it every turn. Yep.
Okay.
Because it is her turn. She is having great difficulty, like sort of navigating past you as he's still like screaming, like trying to get away, and she's like, Galdir, I can't. Like she stabs at him.
Sorry, I'm trying.
Yeah, like one of it sort of like dings off of one of your spikes, and she's like, "Oh, God's Galdir." She's trying, but she doesn't hit him. And we are back around to the top, which is your turn. He is injured. You've seen. I mean, he's sort of like cracked where you've heard him, and he just looks at you again, and he's like, "Whatever you do to me, I do to you."
Yeah.
Be clear, for the sake of your resistances, it's Hellish Rebuke is what he hits you with, by the way.
Oh, it's fire damage. Yeah, so my resistance does not apply to that fire damage.
Yep.
I'm not a bear totem barbarian as much as it would be nice if I were. Okay. Well, I guess I'll just have to get you down before you get me. There's nothing else to it, you bag of bones. Here come 2 Morningstar attacks. Natural 20.
Hey.
Holy shit. Those are 2 natural 20s in a row.
I mean, it's almost like you're fighting for the cause of justice here. Yeah.
Thanks, D&D Beyond. Digital Dice Roller.
Digital Dice Roller from D&D Beyond. Available now. Yeah.
Okay. I guess those are 2 crits in a row.
Those are 2 crits in a row.
Well, here come these 2 Morningstar strikes. The first one is going to be 12 damage.
Okay.
The second crit is going to be 14 damage, so 26.
Give me your dex save.
Okay. It's pretty good. That's 21.
Again, that is enough for half damage. So you smash into him violently with this Morningstar, and the flames leap up again. And you hit him again, and he's like, you hear something like crack with a satisfying crack inside of him. And he sort of goes, and he just sort of like looks at you for a second laying there, and he's like, I should have died long ago, dwarf. I welcome oblivion. And you see he is still like feebly reaching for his sword. Like you realize you've catastrophically damaged him. Like you've been at this long enough that you know when you landed right. You hear a satisfying crunch off of the first Morningstar, and then a second one. Like you feel things give way inside of him. But he's still reaching. He's like, I welcome the end. Trying to grab his sword.
I feel for you. I'll try and hasten the end as best I can. I've still got 1 attack as a bonus action with my spikes. How much damage did I take from that Hellish Rebuke, by the way?
You made the save, so 5.
Okay. And I am bloodied, by the way. Now, here comes the armor spikes. Ooh, that's a bad roll. That is 2 plus 5 plus 3. That's only a 10 to hit. Oh, wait, I have advantage because he's prone.
And you have that D4 also.
Yeah, that's with the D4. Okay, so
Okay.
that is 9 plus 5 plus 3 is 17.
That is not enough to hit him, and I want you to know that he would have had a natural 20 to hit you back if not for that disadvantage.
Damn.
Oh yeah, no, he was about to be like, "We all gonna die, gack." You know? So the disadvantage intervene. He does like sort of try and swing feebly. You realize maybe you broke his collarbone, like it's not quite working right, and he is very ineffective. And you see. Again, Miriam not having the best day, comes up and she steps on his arm and just drives her sword down through it, down into the ground on his sword arm. He's and you see on the blade he starts like lifting it, where like his arm is like coming up, like he's trying, but she has him, but he's still. And he looks at you, and just for a split second, and also there would have been another 20, but the disadvantage saved it. He's fighting like a lion to the very last second. He looks at you, and he just says, "Dwarf."
Aye.
Bury us all back where we belong. But he reaches his hand up for your throat, just like you're grappling him. He's still, even though he says that to you with his empty hand, he's still trying to choke the life out of you. And it is your turn.
Oh, did she not go?
No, she missed with one attack and pinned his arm with the other one.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm just kneeling down on top of him as best I can. I've got one hand holding on his chest. I say, Knight, you lived honorably in life. What you did after that, I won't hold it against you. Let this be the end for you. Okay, here is an attack roll with Morningstar.
He just looks at you still, again, feebly. He's trying to still choke you, but he's just like, a warrior's death is all I ever sought.
So with that angelic guidance, that's going to be 15 plus 3, 18.
That is not enough.
Oh my god. Okay.
Yeah, he's wearing full plates. So, I mean, you clang, clang, clang.
So, all right, I've got another Morningstar attack coming in. Okay, that is 15 plus 5 plus 1 is 21.
That is enough.
Oh. That's minimum damage, 5 damage.
And you see, like, the hand sort of, like, falls back a little bit. And he's like, he just lays there a second, and his head kind of rolls. And you see Miriam reaches down and pulls the helmet off. And you see the face of the man that was in the painting over the mantle. The proud knight. But it is worn and haggard and pale and dead. And he just like looks at you blinking, and he's like, "Tell father I forgive." And his head rolls back and he stops moving.
I'll tell him. Rest well, you unfortunate son of a bitch. Okay.
Muriel stands up, and you hear she says something in Celestial that you don't quite understand. But it's clear to you she's praying.
I'm sure your prayers do the man credit, Muriel. You should go back up to Crestfield. I want to let him know that he needs to care for the people of this town as if they were his son. They are his family. I have a feeling that I'll be coming back here again sometime, just to make sure that he's true to him, as he ought to be.
She leans down and picks up the helmet. And she just sort of like looks at it. And she says, Galdir.
Aye?
I'm sorry for what's happened to you, but understand, curses take many forms. You may be imprisoned physically, but your heart is still free.
Hmm. You know, you might be right. But, you know, a dwarf like me, an angel like you, we're meant to roam. We're meant to seek things. We're not meant to be trapped up in stone houses like this, like Lord Calder. He has been hiding from his curse all this time, trying to keep it buried. You and I, we're gonna go out into the world and seek an answer and change it with our own two hands. He's got to realize that.
She hands you the helmet and says, then come, my friend. Let us go restore these people.
I take the helmet.
As you make your way up, Lord Calder is still in his study, sitting by his desk. Like this when you come in.
Lord Calder, your son has been granted the rest he so greatly desired. No thanks to you. And I take the helmet and I just toss it across the room at him.
It flies toward
as a symbol of your shame.
It sort of flies towards him, and you see he holds his hand up and it stops. And sort of floats over to him and just lands on the desk in front of him. And he says, Dwarf, would you do me one last kindness?
Oh? What would it be?
Remove Tarasilla from here. Put her on the couch in her room. She will awaken there. I do not wish her to see this or me just yet.
I look down at my hands and my arms and I say, Muriel, I suppose that task falls to you, if you would be so kind.
She sort of looks at you for a second and she just slowly nods and comes over and picks her up, and she does move out of the place where she's suspended. And you all carry her down and lay her down. And after a moment, she's like, Renan!
No Renan here. I'm sorry. You've been asleep for a while.
I don't... Who... And she goes over to the window and she pushes it open. And when she stands there, you see the people all stop. And you hear a little voice say, That's the sleeping lady! And you see Amelia pointing up at her from the street. And everyone sort of stops and they're like, oh, Tarasilla, there's Tarasilla. Oh, Tarasilla. And they stop and start to like gather around. And she turns back and she looks at you all and she just says, I don't understand.
Those are your people, Tarasilla. That's the town of Pinehaven. It's your town. And you have been spared from a great evil. This house fell under a baleful curse. And your father-in-law, asked me and my friend Muriel here to help you. My name is Galder. Galder Bristlehide. I've got a request of you.
Name it.
When your father-in-law began suffering from this curse, he locked you and Renan and himself in the house, shut it away from the world. I want you to open this house up again. I want to make sure that all of the power and wealth, influence that you, the other Crestfields, hold on to, you and that little baby of yours on the way, I want you to make sure that the Crestfield name is one that lives on as one of generosity, one that will be a true leader and a river to your people.
You did this. You helped Renan. You helped me.
Aye.
She motions for you to come to the window.
I step forward.
She
And I
says,
make sure that Muriel comes with me.
because you notice Muriel hadn't moved at all until you're like, come. She sort of like,
You helped, you glowy, blinky fool. Come over here and take some credit for what you did.
she walks up and she just sort of stands there, and you see her eyes light up because, again, they do this when she's nervous also, but she stands there. And Tarasilla looks out and she says, friends, I've apparently been away longer than I thought, and I will need to get caught up, but I just wanted to say thank you to these brave adventurers. And I would just like to take this moment to give at least a piece of good news. Yes, I am with child, and yes, it is a son. And with your permission, Frindorf, I would like to name him Renan Galdir Crestfield.
In my language, Lady Tarasilla, the name Goldir means song. I think it's a beautiful name for a son who will inspire his people. I'd be honored if he bore that name.
Down on the ground, you hear, I can make up a song. His name is Galdir. He got a long beard. He's not from here. And that's a good place for us to stop.
I love you, Amelia. This one goes out to Amelia.
Shout out to Amelia. Yeah. Mr. Haeck, thank you so much for joining us, sir.
And, thank you so much.
Tell us again where people can find you.
You can find me most often of all on Twitter at James J. Haeck. You can find me every single week on D&D Beyond, writing articles and encounters for you to use in your own Dungeons & Dragons games. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, and thank you all for tuning in. Thank you all for hanging out with us. Again, the world is on fire. The battle is far from over. The real battle is in November. Do not forget that. That is the most important thing. So enjoy your breaks. Enjoy these games. I'm about to pop over to D4 right now to do a charity game raising money for the Bail Project. So check that out. Remember to vote with your wallet, and if you can't, and if you cannot get out and protest, if you can't vote with your wallet, that is all fine. Like my friend Mika Burton said, we fight with the weapons that we're proficient with. So signal boost, speak the truth, do what you can. There is no wrong answer, and we will get through this. Until then, I will see y'all next week.
Yeah, speaking of... I am matching donations to the Bail Project, to the Pacific Northwest Community Bail Fund, to any bail fund of your choice. Look at my Twitter. There's a post there. Post a receipt in the replies. Go to my Twitter, post a receipt in the replies of that tweet, and I will match whatever it is you donate.
Thank you, sir. Like I said, you did a lot of people. There's a lot of negativity out there, but I want y'all all to know that James J. Haeck literally puts his money where his mouth is in ways you will never even know. So you're a good guy, and we appreciate you, sir.
Thanks so much, B Dave. Great
Right.
playing with you. I hope I get to do it again.
Great playing with you. I got to tell y'all, in the midst of all this insanity, I've completely forgotten who's on next week. So somebody dope. And I'll tell you when I remember. And in the meantime, I will see y'all next week. Okay, bye.
Peace.